You're listening to Seek Travel Ride, a podcast all about sharing inspirational bike adventures from all over the world. And before we get into today's episode, a quick shout out to our sponsor, Red White Apparel. They've spent over a decade doing one thing, and that is making bib shorts which will keep you comfortable in the saddle no matter how far or how long you ride, even on those multi-day tours. As someone who's tried going chamois-free, I can tell you I need reliable bib shorts, and these are the best ones I've found lately. If you're looking for comfort which lasts, hit the link in the show notes and check them out. Alright, now on to the episode. Hello everyone, Bella Malloy here, host of Seek Travel Ride. Welcome to another midweek mini episode where I fuel your stoke and wanderlust for bike travel. This week I'm excited to share a brand new update from our intrepid adventurer Rebecca Gross. Rebecca and her partner Harvey left their home in Austria in March this year, headed towards the Pamirs. Now, this was Rebecca's first long-distance bikepacking adventure, and she agreed to share her experiences all along the way, and I have received her latest audio update, which comes to us from China. I'm super stoked to share these updates from Rebecca because I feel each and every time I get these periodically every month, I can actually see the progression that Rebecca's taken and how she has really grown into the adventure. But I also appreciate the absolute honesty with which she shares her experiences as well. She doesn't sugarcoat over everything. She's not trying to make out that adventure is all blue skies, sunshine, unicorns and rainbows. I feel that's a really important thing, to stick a dose of reality into what it's like day after day on the road. So let's listen to what Rebecca has to say.
Ni hao from Urumqi, the capital city of Xinjiang, an area in the northwest of China. We are today exactly 5 months on the road and already reached China, which somehow never really was the plan. But how did we come here after the Pamir? Our plan was always more or less clear, although we reached Tajikistan differently than expected, with going through Iran. Afterwards, we always knew we want to visit Kyrgyzstan, but we had no route planned, and then the idea was going to Pakistan. But with the conflict with India and close borders, we needed to find another route, and that's when Mongolia was suddenly in our head. So after living the pure adventure in Tajikistan, we cycled through Kyrgyzstan over to Kazakhstan. We had no set route in Kyrgyzstan, but with every bikepacker we met and every information we got, the plan became clearer, and after some mountain passes, it was just logic to us to go over some more mountain passes. That's when the Tian Shan Traverse came into our minds. That traverse goes from Bishkek to Karakol, and we did one part of the route. This part goes directly into the mountains, and looking on the kilometers and the non-existent roads and steep passes, we thought it would be doable in about 3 days. But we were pretty wrong. Knowing the next days the weather would be bad, we still hit the road. Not even ourselves know why we didn't wait for the rain to pass. Living and growing up in the mountains, I know that this is not a good idea. But somehow I turned into being more adventurous, and so we set off anyway. Already on the first day, a massive thunderstorm hit. With winds pushing us off the bikes, we just somehow tried to reach a village. But then, suddenly out of nowhere, there was a house. It didn't seem abandoned, but we also saw no car, so we almost lost hope that it would be open. But at the door, they left the keys, and when nobody opened, we were cheeky enough to let ourselves in. Sneaking into a private property or even a house is not something we normally do, but we were just helpless in this storm. After it got better, we cycled to the next village, where they immediately offered us a yurt to stay for the night. And the next days didn't look different. Always, when a thunderstorm hit us, there somehow was a container or a yurt with friendly locals who gave us shelter. The roads, or better to say, endless fields with no clear road, were already so muddy that we were constantly dirty and full of cow shit. How is this even enjoyable? After 4 days and countless questions about what we were doing here, the day of the pass arrived. The day started with a very low temperature, and on top of that, with 3 deep and ice-cold river crossings in a row. How low can a low be? But then the sun came out, the mud dried, and we reached the top of Arabel Pass. No one was there, and we celebrated these crazy days with good instant coffee in incredible surroundings. After this adventurous traverse, it was time for some relaxing day at the lake and with some hiking in the mountains. After experiencing Kyrgyzstan to the fullest, it was time to move on, although we could have stayed here forever. Since we have heard that Almaty in Kazakhstan is a very European city, this was my number one goal after the Pamir. But of course, we didn't take the ordinary way. We chose the mountains again, not knowing that we cycled it probably in the wrong direction, as we only met cyclists doing it the other way around. If nature wasn't so stunning and incredibly beautiful, I would have asked myself again, what the hell am I doing here? Sandy and rocky surface, lack of water, the Kazakh heat, and more pushing than cycling, even downhill. But at the end, it was worth all the effort, and our break in Almaty felt even better. After some days with good coffee and food, we came to China. We always saw China more as a transit country, rather than cycling for the adventure itself. But soon we realized how wrong we have been, assuming that it wouldn't be worth it. Again, we cycled straight through the mountains, covered a lot of kilometers and meters in altitude, like never before. Perfect roads and not very steep climbs made it possible. We saw amazing landscape, and after some pretty busy roads, we got granted with empty mountain roads for the last days. Not only did we love the landscape, food is also next level here. We eat delicious noodles every day, and friendly locals provide us with juicy watermelon every single day. Finally, there was no need to cook on our own. Locals are surprisingly open and always eager to help. We got gifted with fruit, water, and even a shelter when a pretty bad storm hit. The only problem here is the communication. Almost no one speaks English. And if we try to say some words in Chinese, no one understands because of our bad pronunciation. Also, it seems that gestures are different here, because when we try to signal some easy words like water or tent, they just don't seem to understand. And already at the very first moment in China, on the border, we realized that communication will be a challenge here. At the passport control, they asked me about my job. And to their defense, probably 90% of people do not know that my job exists. Although it is crucial in healthcare. I'm a biomedical scientist and I work in the laboratory And so I told them every possible word I knew to describe my job. Laboratory, blood test, microscope, tissue testing, medical test, hospital. But when they asked me if I know English, I almost really got angry. Since they had no clue and didn't know enough English, they luckily let me pass the control. And we have countless stories like this one of misunderstanding. But what changed most was not the culture or the food. It was myself. Somehow I crossed this imaginary line of adaptation. And there is no going back. I feel so much more confident sleeping in the tent, going through bad weather, and doing difficult gravel routes. Some weeks ago, I thought about going home pretty often. But not because I didn't like bikepacking, but because I felt it was enough adventure and going home would be comfortable. But one bikepacker told me he felt the same. But as he was carrying on and pushing through, even better times lied ahead. With this in mind, I kept going. And he was quite right. And now I only think about which country could we visit next, and since we almost reached half time, I want to see as many countries as possible. So this trip is not only adventurous or fulfilling, it is also a constant roller coaster of emotions. But I am super happy and grateful to live through all of this. Now Mongolia awaits us, which means going back to cooking on our own and riding through challenging landscapes. Our plan now only covers the next 2 or 3 weeks. What comes after, we also don't know. Letting adventure lead our way makes this trip even more special. So let's see which surprises lie ahead of us.
Rebecca, I truly love your updates, and this one had a little bit of everything in it. And it's amazing for me to just reflect on how far you've come since you've left your home in Austria. You've gone through the Pamirs, through Tajikistan, and now you're sending me updates covering off Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and into China, a place where neither of you had thought of exploring before. And by all intents and purposes, it sounds like you have had a magnificent time there. I was trying to put myself in your shoes when you were talking about heading out into the storm, and I wondered what you would do now in hindsight. Everything worked out fine, and I know travelling with Harvey there that he's very keen on embracing uncertainty and adventure. But I wondered, if you could take yourself back to that point in time, would you have still headed out? Now, everything, as you said, worked out well, but there were times where it was a little bit grim and miserable and crazy. And the mountains can be really problematic very, very quickly. Yeah, if you had your time again, would you have still headed out in that storm, do you think? Or do you think you would have waited just a few days? I just want to say again how much I really have enjoyed watching you grow in this adventure. Something that you said that I wanted to pull out there was, you said, what changed the most hasn't been the culture or the food, it's actually been myself. Somehow I crossed this imaginary line of adaptation and there is no going back. I feel so much more confident sleeping in the tent, going through bad weather and doing difficult gravel routes. Some weeks ago I thought about going home pretty often, not because I didn't like bikepacking, but because I felt it was enough adventure and going home would be the right decision, but not anymore. And I absolutely loved hearing that from you, Rebecca. I loved knowing that it's with experience that you've grown into the adventure. And perhaps it's that experience which keeps leveling up what you're taking on as well. I have to remind myself that what you're doing, this was stuff that you had never done before. And taking yourself off to some of the biggest mountains in the world, riding on some of the roughest roads in the world, on obscure routes, being isolated for days. Like, this isn't beginner territory, but you are proving that you do not need to be super experienced to allow yourself to go there and give things a go. It sounds like you have got a perfect adventure partner there in Harvey, and the two of you are a super dynamic duo taking everything on. And listeners, I can say that since Rebecca has sent me through this update in China, She and Harvey are now in Mongolia, leveling up once more on some wicked terrain, super washboard corrugated roads, endless climbs, and a weather that is very, very testing too. I'm looking forward to what the next update's going to bring us all, so be on the lookout for that one again in another few weeks. In the meantime, be sure to check out on Instagram. I will post up images from Rebecca's latest journey so you can have a look at some of the visuals from this part of her update. And I'll also post links to her Instagram, Harvey's Instagram, and their YouTube channel. They've been putting together some videos from this journey as well, and they've just released a brand new one there from when they were in Turkey. It blows my mind to think of where they are now, but it's definitely worth your while in having a look. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Rebecca. Listeners, I want to give you an amazing dot watching update, and that is, drum roll please, da-da-da-da-da. As you know, the last few weeks I've been giving you updates on some dots that I have been watching in the transcontinental race, and I am super thrilled and very proud of my fantastic good friend Stevie Tisson, who has managed to finish the transcontinental race. She got herself to the finish line there in Romania. And Stevie, can I just say, beyond words, the effort that you put in on this, just under 5,000 kilometres ridden, which was crazy, some immense weather conditions that you battled through as well. Listeners, I was really fortunate to be getting voice updates from Stevie right throughout, and I had been avidly watching her dot make her way across all of continental Europe. The day that she finished, I think the last few hours, I was constantly updating and refreshing the dot and watching its progress come through on the final parkour. And I must admit, I got a little bit emotional seeing her dot there at the finish line. And I'm just so super impressed of what she has achieved there. So congratulations, Stevie. And also another shout out to her, an amazing husband, Tom, also a good friend of mine, because while Stevie was taking on the transcontinental race, Tom was challenging himself on the North Cape 4000 race. He started from Berlin and took himself all the way up to North Cape, and also proved that ultracycling and taking on these enormous challenges, well, it's something this dynamic couple is doing. And Tom also succeeded in reaching the North Cape. Both Tissons, mega congratulations. You are legends. Listeners, if you're planning a multi-day tour, don't underestimate how important good bib shorts are. Trust me, I've done big days in the saddle, I've done the back-to-backs, and comfort really, really matters. I ride in red white apparel because they just work. The chamois holds up day after day, and their P-brake friendly design makes life on the road so much more convenient. Hit the link in the show notes and check them out for your next big ride. Now, back to the episode. Listeners, recently on our Seek Travel Ride Instagram channel, I asked you all a few questions, and I would love to share the responses from those questions with you now. The first question I put out there was to tell me all about a mini adventure which you took close to home. If you've been listening to the podcast lately, you'll know that I personally am all about mini adventures because I just don't have the time in my schedule to take a few weeks or even a month or two out to go on long tours. And can I just say, the host of a show all about bike travel, not being able to get out there as often as I'd like, my gosh, it does do my head in. But it also means that I have unlocked the power which is the mini adventure. And that can be as quick as an overnighter or a full day affair, maybe a weekend. But I've realised that taking mini adventures often leaves us with the exact same feelings that perhaps a longer trip can do. And because they're more achievable and easier to fit into our general lives, it also means that we have the opportunity to undertake more of those trips as well. So I asked the question to tell me all about a mini adventure which you took close to home, and these are responses which I got. The first one is from occasional_bikepacker. That is you, Jacob Ashton, previous guest of the show. Long distance adventurer turned into ultracyclist, by the way. Anyway, Jacob said, I rode to the top of a mountain with a fire lookout that I'd never been to before. I love that because it's a sense of I've never been to this place before. If you're going to a lookout, it means you've got a great view as well. And it's just something new and achievable. So that's from Jacob. Next one I have there is from rotovelo_naught. And you said you did a sub 24-hour adventure just about 2.5 kilometers away from home. It was a stealth camp in local scrub. And I can tell, I already know who you are, rotovelo_naught. But listeners, you can probably tell from the fact that it was a stealth camp in local scrub that he is a fellow Aussie there, getting out in the bush. I love the idea that you're just getting away so close to home but still able to enjoy a night's camp out there as well. And I'm sure it was energising for you too. And then lastly, I have Lise JJ1, who says, a gravel ride on logging roads to Nitinat Lake Vancouver Island in Dididat First Nation territory. Oh, Lise, that sounds absolutely magic. I've not been to Vancouver Island before, but I have seen many images, and if I close my eyes and just think about what it would be like there to be in a lake on some gravel roads to get there as well, I think that is a recipe for a successful mini adventure, and I absolutely love it. Listeners, my own mini adventure to add to this story recently, it didn't even involve a camp, but it did involve a really, really long trek to a bus to take me to an awesome mountain resort here in the Pyrenees where me and my husband hiked for all day, and we had one of the most amazing hikes in the beautiful high mountains, waterfalls all around us, watching vultures soaring, enjoying a picnic on the mountainside there as well. And we got back home very, very late in the evening on the final bus home. But again, it was just an achievable mini adventure that had us out there all day in the outdoors and refilling and re-energizing my soul. More recently on Instagram, I asked you to let me know, where did you go for your very first bike adventure? And I got a few answers to this one. Jules_Bulls said, Muz to Koblenitz. I'm sure I have just butchered both of those names. I'm going to try again. Muz to Koblenz, which is in Germany, 160 kilometers. At the age of 15, it was 1997, and I had a pillow with me on my saddle. I actually responded, I said, what a great first adventure that would have been, even though if it was painful. And she said, yeah, it was really painful. I didn't have any bib shorts. I had a shitty bike. I borrowed panniers of a father from a friend. And I even wore jeans, but I loved it. So I love that response there, Jules. Next one I have got, where is Marcelo? Marcelo, you've just returned from an amazing adventure in Norway. But your very first bike adventure, you told me, was Helsinki to Rovaniemi. I learnt to use a tent the very night before. I love this. And this is actually something I've done before when I've had a new tent and I didn't want to get to the campsite not knowing how to put it up. So it's a little practice pack, but I think that's great. And it sounds like you had yourself a great first bike adventure too. Next I have P. Vasseur, and you said the Highlands of Scotland. Absolutely stunning. Oh, I 100% agree with you. Scotland is magic. I had the absolute privilege of being there for almost a week at the end of May this year, where Scotland did not have typical Scottish weather. It was beautiful, sunny, and mid-20 degrees. In fact, I don't think there was even a cloud in the sky. We didn't get to the Highlands on that trip, but I have been before, and that scenery there is so unique and so grand, and yeah, it is energizing for the soul. I then have Cycle 5 to Survive, and they have said Vancouver Island, BC, Canada. Vancouver Island getting a shout out again on the podcast. A truly beautiful part of the world to go adventuring in. I then have Gina's_wanderings, and you have said Tuscany. It was a great choice. We had views for days and amazing food to make up for all the climbs. Oh, it sounds good. I bet you needed all that amazing food to fuel you. Italian food. I wonder if you had great Italian coffee as well. I've not been to Tuscany yet, but I have seen those beautiful white roads, and I feel like it's an area that I'd love to explore myself too. And last but not least, I have Sheila.Daily, and Sheila, you have said Scotland. It has my heart. I've seen your footage there, Sheila, from your very first trip, and you've just recently taken another trip through there. I watched it on your YouTube channel and saw you there on the Hebridean Way dealing with all the weather. I love that you've returned to the country of your very first bike adventure, and also just how you've leveled it up since that time as well. Listeners, this is where I tell you about my very first bike adventure. And my first bike adventure was in the snowy mountains in the Jagungal Wilderness in Australia. It was myself, my husband, and two real good friends of ours. And the four of us intrepid travellers took ourselves for an overnighter to one of the high country huts aptly named Happy's Hut. We had a very happy time there. It was freezing overnight. Our tents were covered in ice. We had a lovely campfire, and all 4 of us can still swap stories from that time. So that was my very first bike adventure. I would love to hear from more of you. Reach out to me on Instagram, send me a DM at Seek Travel Ride, and tell me all about your very first bike adventure. All right, listeners, it is now time for me to give an awesome shout out to you, my super fans, who have continued to show your appreciation for the podcast and supported the work that I'm putting together for you in publishing these episodes each and every week. You have bought me some virtual coffees, for which I am very thankful. I'd like to give a shout out to Susie Alexander Art. Susie, you have said, "Hi Bella, I think it's you who are a legend. Thanks so much for your podcasts. You've entertained me through a busy month of preparing for an art show. My paintbrush flies across the canvas while my mind is pedaling down roads and across landscapes. I can't wait for my next bike adventure this fall. Big cheers to you and your next croissant to go with your coffee." Well, Susie, thank you so much for being a legend and supporting me on the podcast. I'm glad to think that you're tuning into these inspiring stories from our guests and that you're listening to it while you're being so creative there with your artwork. I will enjoy my coffee and croissant, and thank you so much for supporting me on the pod. Listeners, if you would like to be like Susie and support me on the podcast as well, you can do so by heading to buymeacoffee.com/Seek Travel Ride. Buy me some virtual coffees or croissants and let me know, more importantly, what is it that you love about the podcast and where is your next bike adventure going to take you? Until the next episode, I'm Bella Malloy. Thanks for listening. All right, that's it for today's episode. And if you're still listening, it probably means that you care about doing long rides and taking bike adventures, which means that you will also care about doing them in comfort. So here's my pitch. Red White Apparel. I wear them, I love them, they're comfy, they're smartly designed. For women, they're pee-break friendly. Need I say more? Support them because they support this podcast. Click the link in the show notes and check them out for yourself.